Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. WildMax1 here bringing another Raid Shadow Legends video. And today we're going to be going over one of the best nukers in the arena today. Someone that doesn't just bring offensive power, but also defensive power for your teams. I am, of course, talking about the Force Affinity defensive-based nuker from the Shadowkin faction, Harima. Today I'll be going over her build and kit, showing you how to build her for maximum effectiveness, and finally showcasing her in dungeons and on two different styles of teams in the arena. Let's get into it. So Harima was introduced to Raid in November of 2022 and has since then been a staple when it comes to the arena. One of the top nukers with an incredibly unique passive that allows her to be on defensive or offensive oriented teams. In PvE, she's also excelling in wave-based content, any kind of normal dungeons, and in every clan boss encounter in the game. So with that, let's take a look at her kit. Starting off with her A1, Debasement. Attacks one enemy has a 50% booking up to 75% chance of placing a big decrease attack for 2 turns, and also placing that on every other enemy with a 50% chance if the initial attack was critical. This is actually really nice when it comes to AoE encounters, so anything in like Doom Tower Hard or Hydra, where there's multiple enemies where she has a chance to be spreading that. On an A1, having a 50% decreased defense works really well with a champion that is defensive in nature, although still a nuker. So kind of fits into that dual role that she has. Moving on to her A2, Purgative Punishment. Attacks one enemy 3 times, triple hitter. Each hit decreases the enemy's defense by 5%, stacking up to 30. So 2 applications of this will get you to 30. Each hit will also increase Harima's defense by 5% per hit, stacks up to 100%. So she can double her defense using this enough times in a longer encounter. Instantly activates the Celestial Awe skill if this skill kills an enemy. That is the A3, which we're going to get into in just a moment. But this A2 is on a 4-turn booking down to a 3-turn cooldown. So 3-turn cooldown, triple hitter. You love to see that in today's arena against champions, especially like Rhodos and others that are weaker to multi-hitters. It's so nice to have passive reduction to the enemy's defense, especially in PvE encounters that take a little bit longer. Clan boss, for example. And then having the ability to double her defense. This is very reminiscent of Ninja's escalation passive, where you can double his attack over the course of a fight. Harima has the same kind of scaling within an encounter, allowing her to double her defense. So 6,000 defense on your Harima, suddenly she's working with 12. Amazing A2. Moving on now to her A3, Celestial Awe. So as we already saw, if she knocks somebody out using her A2, Purgative Punishment, it will trigger a Celestial Awe A3. Attacks all enemies, places a provoked debuff for 1 turn, and this cannot be resisted if the target champion is from a demon spawn faction. So that applies to a lot of champions, a lot of demon spawns in today's arena. We're talking Cheshire Cat, Volcanos, Commodus, Duchess, all of those, Carnage, all of those champions are going to be vulnerable to this. This is on a 4-turn booking down to a 3-turn cooldown. So an AoE provoke that deals a ton of damage. In an ideal scenario, you would open up with this A3, weaken everybody, then next turn go in with the Purgative Punishment, hopefully knocking out a champion using it and triggering the A3 again, once again, roasting everybody on the field and potentially even wiping everybody out. This is why she is so strong when it comes to arena. It's all that AoE damage that she can do and the fact that she's so difficult to take down. Really awesome A3. Moving on now to her passive, Demon Slayer. Enemy ignored defense effects are decreased by 50%. That's right. One of the most sought after, if not the most sought after damage stats in the game. She decreases it by 50%. This is why it is so devastating to have her facing her in the arena, because your nukers are suddenly going to be doing far less damage than you're used to. Champions from the Demon Spawn faction also cannot critical hit Harima, and Harima cannot land weak hits on champions from the Demon Spawn faction. As I mentioned earlier, Cheshire Cat, Carnage, Duchess, all of them are a weak affinity matchup for Harima, but in this case, does not matter. She will have no problem landing the provoke from Celestial Awe or doing all the damage from her kit onto those champions. Incredible passive. This is really what makes her unique and sets her apart from so many other defensive-based nukers. And finally, looking at her aura, ally res in all battles by 80. Really good because she is included in a lot of really tanky high-res teams or team compositions, especially for like arena defense purposes. Looking now at her total stats, we see just under 17k HP. Not bad for a defensive-based damage dealer. Attack doesn't matter on her. Healthy amount of defense over 1,500. 97 speed. You'd like to see that. I definitely like to see that be a little bit faster, maybe 100, but you take what you can get. So when building your Harima, two approaches: accuracy or no accuracy. If you're going to be building her with accuracy, chances are you're bringing her into Hydra, and she might be your provoker for the Head of Decay. So in that case, just build enough accuracy to make sure you land that provoke on whatever difficulty you're going to be running. If you're building her for Arena, I recommend not going with any accuracy at all. That way you don't have to worry about getting sheeped, polymorphed, or anything like that. So instead, all you need to do is just focus on defense, crit capping her, and crit damage, and she's absolutely going to smack. Obviously, building her with enough speed for whatever tier you are in Arena. Now, depending on where you're going to be focused on for your Harima, my recommendation for sets is going to vary just a little bit. If you're primarily going to be focused on Arena and you want her to perform as well as she can there, in today's meta, having one-turn Stone Skin is almost a must. Harima is a slightly slower champ at 97 base speed, so having one-turn Stone Skin makes sure that she's not going to be catching crowd control of some form, fears, stuns. She's not going to be getting her turn meter pushed back, and it's going to give her a chance to actually get rolling in the fight and start getting stronger by stacking up her defense. Pair this up with one of the ignore enemy defense sets like Lethal or Instinct or Savage, and you should have a good Harima for the Arena. Now, if you don't care about optimizing your Harima specifically for Arena, so going with Lethal and one-turn Stone Skin, which will perform fine in PvE, by the way, but for PvE specifically, the top set that you could possibly put her in is ironically one with attack percent on its base stats, and that is 9-piece Merciless. Harima loves the skill cooldown reduction, the 35% ignore defense, the most of any ignore defense set, and the 15% chance of getting an extra turn. For all those reasons, this is the #1 set for PvE, which should still perform really well in Arena, provided that she still gets to take turns. So this would be your #1 choice for overall damage dealing. #2 would probably be 6-piece Merciless. After that, it would be any of the 4-piece sets combined with other sets like Zeal, for example, or Impulse, or Speed, or Perception, or any of those other ones. But 9-piece Merciless is by far the best set for Harima for dealing damage. So with that, let's take a look at how I have my Harima built. I have her sitting in 4-piece Savage as my ignore defense set. I have her in 2-piece Perception as my extra set just for the extra speed, and because the particular pieces I have really good substats for Harima. The Slayer is just bonus from my ring. For the individual pieces, for the ring, defense with defense ascension. Amulet is crit damage ascension. The banner is defense with accuracy ascension. Ideally, it would be with defense ascension, although if you are building her for accuracy, this could easily be accuracy. For the gloves, crit damage with defense ascension, although ideally with crit damage ascension. For my chest, defense with flat defense ascension, but this would ideally be percentage. I just don't have the dust right now. And then speed with speed on my boots. Total stats on my Harima: 46.5k HP, 6.2k defense, 246 speed, crit capped, 275 crit damage, and I do not care about the rest of the stats. Now, I would have loved for my Harima to be 4-star awakened. That would have taken her over 300 crit damage, which is the spot where I usually like to have most of my nukers, but unfortunately, we are all at the mercy of the Soul Merchant. But with this gear, I use Harima mostly for Arena defense teams, and she does her job absolutely admirably with the right support. So with that, let's take a look at her relic. For my relic on Harima, I am currently using a Cat's Gaze. Cat's Gaze is exactly what Harima really likes. The attack you can forget about, but in this case, having more ignore percent defense on Harima is so valuable when it comes to having her do damage for both PvE and in the Arena. If you don't have a Cat's Gaze, weren't able to pick one up, there's a lot of other really good options that you can go for. Gilded Dragonstone, defense on the flat stat, along with a chance to get more percent increased defense for Harima, extremely valuable. She's somebody that already stacks defense percentage through her A2, so this is just additional stats that she can stack up. If you have her built with enough accuracy and you're primarily using her in PvE, or if you just have a really high version of this relic, a good one to consider could be Erethi Coronet. Again, you don't care about the flat stat attack, but the wearer's damage increasing by 1% each time they place a debuff. When this is fully upgraded, that is 6% each time they place a debuff. So with one Celestial Awe, you could potentially in Arena have this almost fully stacked up and have this very quickly stacked up in Hydra, allowing her to deal a lot more damage. But if you don't have the Erethic Coronet or Cat's Gaze, if you're trying to meet an accuracy requirement, Molten Deathbell is a nice stand-in. It does give you accuracy and defense as flat stats, both of which Harima appreciates, especially if you are going for accuracy. And passive on it, whenever she provokes, also increases her turn meter. So that's a nice, more budget option. However, if you are going to be going for Arena, then unquestionably the number one relic that pretty much everybody in Arena these days needs is the Wand of Submission. Chances to send back crowd control at the source is so incredibly powerful, keeping your champion safe and turning it around on your opponent, giving you a chance to win the match. This is number one for Arena, pretty much for any champ in my book. For blessings on Harima, you have quite a few options to work with. If you are under 6-star Awakened, then 2 options. Soul Reap for Arena is a really great option because it gives you a chance to execute champions. Sometimes you find they'll barely just survive, and this just gives you a chance to just make sure that they're gone. And then if you're in PvE encounters, buff-heavy teams, Heaven Cast is really helpful for Harima as well, giving her extra damage for each buff on her. If you are building her with enough accuracy to land debuffs and you're in a longer PvE encounter, Hydra or Chimera, whatever it might be, you can also make an argument for Nature's Wrath. That is the counterpart to Heaven Cast. One of them is just flat damage based on buffs. The other one is flat damage permanent based on the amount of debuffs placed by the champ. So both of those are also fine. So Slayer, Nature's Wrath / Heaven Cast. And then if you have her, if you're lucky enough to have your Harima 6-star Awaken, unquestionably the number one best blessing on her in all content is going to be Crushing Rend. The damage difference that this makes is absolutely enormous. If you have it, again, congratulations. If you are missing, however, a Brimstone user on one of your PvE teams, you can also make her that applier of Smite, provided you have enough accuracy built on her. And then, of course, Polymorph is always going to be an option in Arena for your Harima. And now we're looking at the Masteries. So let's go right in. I'm going to move myself so I can talk through this. And here we go. So the tier 6 mastery that I chose is Helm Smasher. Obviously, this can stack with her ignore % defense gear. So I'm trying to get as much of that as possible along with Cat's Gaze. This particular set of masteries is optimized for the Arena. So I went with Shield Breaker. There's a ton of champs that put shield in the Arena. I wanted her first A3 that she cast to be an absolute smacker. So I went with Ruthless Ambush, tried to do more damage with that. She has really hard-hitting A3 and A2, so Cycle of Violence, chance to get her skills off cooldown faster. Secondary tree, I went down defense just to pick up some more tanky masteries right here, like Blast Proof that works really well against AoE, and also give her a chance to counterattack through Deterrence and Retribution, try to put out that decreased attack on an AoE. If, however, your earlier game, you don't have that ignore % defense gear yet, you may choose to go War Master, especially if all you're using her for is PvE, but I still do recommend, as soon as you can, switching over to Helm Smasher. All right, so the first place I want to show off Harima in today's video is going to be in the Minotaur's Labyrinth. On stage 15, Harima, an amazing wave clear champion. So here we're going to see, it's not going to be my fastest run ever, but this is going to be Harima clearing the Minotaur's Labyrinth, just pretty much carrying it on her own. You can just pair her up with 4 other champs. There you saw the Purgative Punishment triggering her A3. So that's just the way it works in Arena as well. Really, really powerful. That's why you want to start with the A3 and then follow up with the A2, kill a champion with it, and then have her A3 trigger again. Hopefully leaving with unrecoverable damage. So there you see her passive on her A2, slowly taking out the defense of the boss there. It works on bosses as well as in champs in Arena. And 32 seconds, Harima soloing Minotaur 15. Pair her up with some champs that need their masteries, scrolls, and you're good to go. All right, for the first showcase in today's video in Arena, we built a team around Harima with Ancora in the lead, Pythion and UDK supporting, and then Harima in the back as the only damage dealer. Pythion has a passive that makes the team tankier for each buff on them. UDK, obviously, one of the tankiest champs in the entire game, absorbing damage for the rest of his team. And then Ancora there, keeping all the nasty crowd control debuffs off of Harima. You can see a version of this team in almost every defense in a lot of the tiers in gold. This is a very typical setup because UDK's, Pythion's, and Harima's passive, that trio right there provides a core for one of the tankiest teams in the game right now in Arena. So we're just going to go in on auto and watch this play out. Because my Harima is not under Stone Skin, I really wanted to make sure to pair her up with Ancora to try to make sure that she wasn't going to get frozen or crowd controlled in some way. So in this case, you saw Harima go in with her Purgative Punishment and take out the Alice on the opposing team. Harima increased her own defense, decreased Alice's defense for the entire duration of the round, and then was able to still provoke 2 champs despite the fact that I built virtually no accuracy on Harima. Harima is just scaling up in damage, hasn't even reached anywhere close to the double defense yet, and yet dealing massive damage there. A2s taking out champions, and then those A3 Celestial Awes just going through and just dealing massive damage. Now, keep in mind, there's a Duchess on the other team right now. Duchess has a passive that reduces AoE damage, so the fact that Harima is able to do meaningful, huge hits like that using her A3 just speaks to how much damage she's actually doing. So at this point, pretty unrecoverable damage. Harima's only getting stronger. I don't see the Duchess being able to pull this out. And yeah, we're going to wrap this one up here in just a moment. Maybe one more revive there, but Harima is going to be able to take everybody out with just one more Celestial Awe, and there you have it. A tanky team, extremely difficult. They weren't even close to being able to do anything to anyone on my team. We're going to test this against a team that has slightly more damage dealers because they also have only one in the Alice right there. But Harima with 600,000 damage right there, and the rest of the team just there to make her look pretty. Absolutely devastating strategy if you can't somehow find a way to control or take out the Harima. All right, next match, we're going after a slightly tankier team with their own UDK. Now, if we were using a Rotos as our primary DPS, that would be an absolute problem with that UDK's passive. But in this case, Harima has an AoE on her A3 and a triple hitter on her A2, so she cares a lot less about this UDK's passive and can pretty much bypass him to still do damage on the opposing team. All right, we're going to go ahead and cleanse. Now, I'm going to go ahead with my AoE and try to take out the Aphodus. Not quite. Got a counterattack going there. Okay, this is going very poorly, but we have a res right here. Let's try to get some heals on them. We have a second res. Okay, here we go. Let's try to start working this guy over here. Take him out. There we go. Good. 2 champs down. Now let's go with heal. Let's hopefully get a decreased turn on. Nope, didn't work out. That's okay though. All right, one more AoE from Harima. A second provoke coming in. Excellent. This is working out pretty well. Now I'm going to take the opportunity and just go ahead and take out this Empress with a double hitter. Oh, thought I could, but apparently not. That could come back to bite us. All right, let me see if I can fear him. I cannot. Oof. This is how much I fear this Empress, is that I think that we could still lose this if he manages to transform. And let's see, can we do this? I don't think we can. I think I would rather value getting a little bit of heal and block. Yep, there we go, block debuffs. All right, here we go. All right, and we won. That was a close one. Harima's provoke coming in clutch. So obviously it does have its applications in Arena if you are going to build your Harima with some accuracy. But again, for some champs, you don't even have to worry about that because they cannot resist it if they're in the Demon Spawn faction. And here you see the final damage breakdown. Harima with 450,000 damage, managing to take out all of the teammates, all the mythical teammates of the UDK before the UDK could even do anything to stop it. Obviously, the A1 being blocked, but the A2 getting through with the second 2 hits, still able to take out champions, still able to trigger that A3, and the A3 obviously doing pretty much the majority of the damage. excellent champion. UDK cannot really stop her. All right, and for the last showcase in today's video in the arena, the team that we've switched up around Harima is going to be with still Ancora to keep those CC off of Harima, but in this case, we've also put in Sifi as a speed lead and Lady Mikage there to combo off with Harima because Lady Mikage's A1 triggers Harima's A1 on the same champ, effectively becoming Lady Mikage's A1. So those two pair really well in the arena. This is more of a, whereas the previous team was more of a style of just being really tanky, taking all the damage, and then slowly ramping up and taking out the opposing team. This one's all about speed and control, and then Harima's passive just helps keep the squishier champs on my team alive while they're able to control, and then Harima's able to do the damage. So let's go in against this team. Looks pretty nasty there. Arbiter speed lead, Armands and Gergo there to crowd control, and then Thor there for the damage. Gergo can also be built for damage, though. So we'll see how this one works out. Opposing team actually faster than me. Okay, so we have Ancora out of the fight. I'm going to go ahead and ramp. Luckily, protected buffs came in, and here we have it. So Lady Mikage's A3, I'm going to go in against the Thor, make sure he doesn't take a turn, because I'm confident that my Harima can take him out with one A1. Okay, and now at this point, I could go in with the A3, but I know that the A2 is going to kill Thor, so it's going to trigger an A3. So here we go. Boom. Slayer coming into play, and there you go. So that was Lady Mikage being much faster than Harima and enabling her to kind of cut in effectively using the ally attack. And then I was able to control the other team by killing their damage dealer and then win the match. So these two, very powerful combination when it comes to the arena. And there you have it, everybody. Harima, provoker, nuker, scaling damage dealer, and great at keeping your team alive, excelling in both arena and in PvE content. If you found today's guide helpful, please consider liking and subscribing for more content in the future. Let me know down in the comments below if there's any other champs or guides or showcases that you'd like to see. Thank you for watching today's video. Thank you for your time. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.